If everyone would rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Zerfing,
She's excused.
She's excused.
Councilmember Benson,
Here.
Councilmember Crandall,
Here.
Councilmember Masters,
He's excused as well.
Councilmember Pruitt,
I'm here.
Councilmember Hank,
Here.
and Mayor Bishop.
Here. The first order of discussion tonight will be on discussion of the finding of facts about the separation agreement. And at this time, we're going to call the attorney so that we can have
Andy.
Hello, Andy. This is George Fisher, Cascade Ops. We're starting the meeting, and we're at the point where we're going to have a discussion on finding of the facts about the separation agreement.
Okay, Ron Guerrero is in my office as well.
All right.
And he's the one who wrote.
He's the one that wrote the contract.
Correct.
All right. At this time, we're going to go on with discussion. Any council member wish to discuss an item at first? Kevin Benson, do you have?
Well, there's been some continued questions about the chronology of the agreements that were proposed to the city and the one that the city finally voted to approve. And I have a list of questions that seem to be pretty common, and I've done some research and found the answers to these. So I'd like to just read them out to you along with the answers. I have given the other council members a copy of this, and they've had the opportunity to review it for factual correctness and other errors. So.
Okay, Andy, can you hear Kevin?
Not very well.
Not very well. Okay, so maybe we should move that down there. So. We're passing you down, hold on. Don't push any buttons.
Okay, so the questions in no specific order was, and first off, we're going to be talking about the first agreement, and that was the agreement that Bernard had proposed to the city, which is agreement number 1. And the first question, when was agreement number 1 received? And the answer is December 25th, 2010. Who received it? Mr. Jordan, the city attorney, and Mr. Lorraine, the mayor of Cascade Locks. How was it transmitted? It was transmitted by email. Where was agreement number 1 prepared, and who prepared it? According to Mr. Seeger and to Mr. Jordan, it was prepared by Mr. Seeger's personal attorney. Who reviewed this agreement for the city? The agreement was reviewed by Mr. Jordan, the city attorney. Was this agreement presented to the full council? And the answer to that is no. For Mr. Jordan's response on this matter, quote, Bernard called me a couple of days before these emails to inform me that he had an attorney who was preparing a proposed agreement for me to review. He told me that the mayor and at least some of the councilors were aware of this proposal. Who made the decision that this agreement wouldn't be in the best interest of the city? Again, quoting Mr. Jordan. I told Bernard and the mayor that the proposal was not sufficient and that I would prepare a revision which I could recommend to the council. The following questions revolve around the second agreement, which was the agreement that Mr. Jordan had Mr. Guerrero, another attorney in his office, prepare for the city? And the first question, who prepared this agreement? Quoting Mr. Jordan again. I had Ron Guerra prepare our revision on Monday morning for the Monday council meeting. And it was forwarded later that day to the mayor, Bernard, and Kathy for dissemination to the council. After the city signed the agreement that was approved by the council, several steps were taken. Legal opinions were sought from several different attorneys about the city's ability to withdraw from the agreement made between Mr. Seeger and the city. All of these opinions concluded that the agreement was in force and in fact binding on the city, and refusing to honor this contract would create a liability for the city. Legal opinions were sought as to the city's ability to invoke language from Mr. Seeger's original employment agreement regarding termination for cause. This inquiry revolved around the Ethics Commission determination that Mr. Seeger had violated Oregon statutes. The opinions concluded that actions by Mr. Seeger, the council had knowledge of...
Correction, it wasn't the Ethics Commission, it was the Elections Division.
I'm sorry, the Elections Division. The opinions concluded that actions by Mr. Seeger the council had knowledge of prior to entering into the separation agreement were addressed by the agreement and were therefore irrelevant beyond the date of that agreement. So that limited our ability to enforce the employment agreement. And then finally, just as a roundup, we as a council are intent on building, through the actions we take, a reputation as a body that deals fairly and honors the agreements we enter into with others. We believe this reflects the values of the vast majority of our citizens and is how they expect to be treated in their individual dealings with the city. We believe that the appropriate steps have been taken in the past 2 weeks. While we're certain that some citizens feel we should have acted in a different manner by either taking action regardless of the liability it would create or by taking no action at all, we don't believe either approach would have fulfilled our responsibility to act in a prudent manner.
Andy, do you agree with all of that, the way it was stated?
Do.
Okay.
Anything more he wants to add?
Council, yeah. Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask, Kevin?
I don't have any questions. I would just like to see this put to bed based on the amount of work that we have in front of us. I understand people's interest in being provided the information and being able to judge for themselves what happened and when and where and all that. And I'm still, and I'm sure the rest of the council is still open to answer questions about this, but my own personal feeling is that this chapter is closed pretty much, that we're past that and we're going to move forward. I think that, obviously each council member has their own opinion, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Councilmember Cranwell, do you have any?
Well, on mine on it's the same type of thing. I believe, in a sense that there's things we should do, but same thing in following in trying to gather information that I attempted to gather on it. I came to the conclusion too that it was going to be a tough haul for the city to take this on, to go after it, to challenge this. And same thing, I believe that we've got lots of issues before us that are going to be some pretty hard-pressing issues for us to work on for the citizens, and I'd rather head that way with the citizens. Now, I'm not sure that it's a closed thing for me. I believe over time, as possibly finding more information, more things out as through the years of how things went on in our city, there may be other actions or other things
I would propose that we take, but for right now, I think the best thing for us is to honor that agreement and move on with some really tough things that we've got to have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Pruitt?
I want to say that I've spent the better part of the last 2 weeks on the phone dealing with this issue, or the cause or effect thereof of this issue. And I get it. People are frustrated, and I would love for there to be a clear, easy answer on this. Simple answer, but there isn't. This was something that was taken out of my hands as a counselor, taken out of your hands as a citizen, and it's done. And if I could go back in time, it would be a wonderful thing, but none of us can. So I agree that we have a lot of pressing issues. We have possibly 2, 3 vacancies in our staff or contractors, and we just have a lot of work that we really need to do, and I agree that we need to get on with the business. And just know that I share your frustration.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Haight?
Yes, I wish this wouldn't have happened the way it would have, but it did. And it was sad that it did happen so quickly. I wish it could have been put off until we could have looked at everything and discussed it with everyone involved. It didn't happen that way. I kind of feel like Tom does. I don't particularly want to drop it completely, but I agree with everyone that right now there's some very important things we have to take care of. And I think that should be the first thing on our table right now. I just wish it would not have taken place like this.
Is that all? Thank you for your comments. My view on this is exactly the same as the rest of the council. You know, we were pretty much dealt with a hand that we have to deal with. And we try to go through that in a professional manner. And we're doing this discussion right now so that this information is available to the community so that they can realize how and why we came to our decision. And I just want to keep everybody in mind that the council will always keep the community of Cascade Locks' interest in best mind. So with that being said, I agree with the rest of the council, and that's going to be the end of that matter for right now.
One
Yes,
thing,
Don?
the correspondence regarding the answers we have will be available if anyone wants to look at it.
Correct. Correct. The correspondence is available, and so we don't normally take questions. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. It's my understanding that in the original employment agreement with Bernard Seeger, there was a separation clause in there already. Now, my question is, why did the attorney think that it was in the best interest of the city not to stick to that agreement, to come up with another agreement that cost the city $18,000 that was not required by the original employment agreement? What did the city do to Mr. Seeger that gave him the right to ask for money that was not, in his original agreement that he signed?
Okay, what I'd like to say is, and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to remember that the prior council was aware of all of these items, okay, with the first agreement, okay? The lawyer knew that the first agreement wouldn't be in the city's best interest, and so,
I think he's talking about the
The
employment, he's
original-
talking about the employment, separate, the
employment
employment
contract.
agreement.
oh, the
which
employment
is
agreement.
different.
Yes.
Okay, but you gotta remember, on that same token is, the prior council had an agreement, but if you were to come to me and make another agreement, and this council agreed to it, because it's a newer agreement, that agreement is binding over the first one. They're both in effect, but the second one, depending on how it's worded, can supersede it.
So it was the council that decided that it was in the best interest
That's
of
correct.
the city to pay Mr. Seeger $18,000 that he was not entitled to.
That's
It
correct.
was 4 members of the council that agreed to that.
That's right.
Okay, I just want that clarified.
Okay?
We all know who those 4 people were.
Can I say something on that?
Yes, Tom?
And Andy can verify that if I'm wrong on this, but the original agreement that we had with the administrator had a for good cause and not for good cause. We could get rid of him for cause or for not cause. And his agreement his first agreement to us said he was willing to go without cause on the 7th of January was his first agreement to us. So if we wanted to not pay, because in that agreement had that whole money structure in it, had we not gone with that, then we would have had to say we're going to do this for cause, which would have put us into a potentially legal situation.
That's,
He was resigning, and there was a clause in the original agreement that when you resign, you leave without pay. Am I correct in that?
yes.
You might be
Well,
correct.
the original agreement, he proposed that he resign and receive 4 months of severance pay,
I'm not
plus
talking about his
vacation pay.
agreements, I'm talking about the side
The
agreement
employment, the
that he
employment.
had, the employment agreement that he had already in effect with the city. There was a.
Oh, you're talking about the
resignation
employment,
clause.
the original employment agreement.
Yes.
That agreement provided that he could be terminated for cause if the city could prove a cause,
Right.
or he could be terminated without cause and be paid 4 months of severance.
And he could resign how?
He could always resign, sure,
Without any pay due.
correct.
Okay, so they decided, 4 people decided that the city of Cascade lots owed him $18,000 for no reason whatsoever.
You'd have to ask them, I don't know.
And I have to say that, I was under the assumption as well that the attorney had something to do with it, but after reading the emails, which will be available to the public, he was just doing what he was directed. He was not part of the plot. He has made a natural assumption that since he had been contacted by the mayor that he had the authority to do that. So that was,
Yeah, I've read all the emails also, and that's how I read it too, that he was directed to do that. That's how I read it.
All right. So with that being said, did you have anything else you wanted to say, Andy?
No, other than what was done is certainly not uncommon. I would guess that there are many in any given city who would think that might be uncommon, but in fact, we spent a couple hours today working on a separation agreement for a governmental manager, virtually the same situation. So this happens all the time, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right, well, at this time, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda. And I need to apologize we need to add another thing to our agenda, and it's, we need to talk about David Griffin's contract revision. He had made changes, which he had talked to myself, and Andy, we need to talk to you about this as well. So we're going to move on to David Griffin's contract. Do you have that, Andy?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
Okay, the David Griffin contract is, we're looking to hire Mr. Griffin to do some wastewater management, no? Just water management, things, since we don't have a public works director right now, so we're looking to contract with this gentleman, and we're just trying to get his contract negotiated so that we can get him on board.
So we can be compliant.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask a question. I understand that this agreement's already been signed by both parties. Is that not true?
It's not true because he had a contract that Bernard had signed.
That's what I've got.
And then he crossed something out on it.
And that's all that we have, and he had scratched out a couple of things, and,
Oh, he scratched those out after Bernard signed it?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, so we don't have an agreement yet. All right, I
No.
understand.
And, Kevin?
I believe the scratched out line in the contract was something that I had asked Mr. Jordan about, because it wasn't in the original contract that was given to us. And the line reads, owners and officers, employees, and agents will be named as additional insureds on each policy, and this relates to his liability insurance. And I've been told that this would be cumbersome and expensive for Mr. Griffin to do on each of his policies. And that's kind of where we're at. And I had wanted to get some advice from Mr. Jordan as to how critical this particular line in the contract is. I think it's a pretty common thing because it's been in every contract I've ever signed when I was dealing with another company. But I'm wondering whether, as us being a public body, we might be more limited as to liability from this not being in there.
I think that asking to be an additional assured from a contractor is common. I agree with you. It can be expensive, and depending on the resources of the contractor, you have the authority, the flexibility to decide whether or not this person's contract creates enough risk for the city to justify requiring him to do that. And keep in mind also that you are insured, so even if he does something that damages the city already has its own insurance. So it's just a question of what you think the risk of this position is.
Mr. Jordan, I was contacted by, I believe, someone from your office? Angela?
Yeah,
And
he's my paralegal.
okay. And she was, part of the discussion was that she had spoken to our insurance carrier in regards to this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's what I understood.
And it wasn't real clear to me what their opinion of this clause being in the contract or not being in the contract was. I never could really quite understand what they had relayed to her.
Okay, I think they relayed to her exactly what I just relayed to you. You simply have a choice to make depending on the risk that you see in this contract. Would it be a good thing to have that clause in there? Sure. Is it cumbersome to a contractor? Yes, it is. So you kind of have to weigh the interests of both parties.
And would
And
you...
I'm not sure that I can do that for you because I really haven't examined the nature nature of the job.
He's doing water testing, freshwater testing.
Mr. Hayden.
Well, and
If you have confirmed that he has insurance, and I think Bernard did that, or at least I heard Bernard say that he did that, I think that's half the battle.
He has insurance, and he said that he would be sending that, it's right at the new year. And you, Kevin, you have it now?
We all have it.
Okay, so you do have it now? That's it, oh, okay, sorry. So currently, he is currently insured. So, the thing that I would see is if it is cumbersome for him and for him to have to do this, I think he would come back and it would cost us additional money. Well, actually, he told me it would cost quite a bit of additional money to have that in. So,
I guess.
do you feel that we're at a minimal risk considering he's just doing water testing?
Well, like I said, I'm not sure that I don't think I've studied the job description or exactly what he's going to do. What I'm sure of is that you are insured, number one. Number two, I'm sure, at least if this fellow has provided you with a certificate of insurance, I'd be sure that he's insured. The only thing that the additional insured clause does is give you the benefit of his insurance.
Right.
But since you already have insurance, you are covered. One way or the other, you're covered. It's just
covered already.
which insurance company would have to pay under the circumstances.
Okay, Kevin?
Just for discussion, we're kind of in a situation where we're accepting a liability by not having a certified person involved in managing our water system.
That's
And
true.
I guess what this is going to come down to is a value judgment between, at least in the short term, whether that outweighs not having this in here. The one item was taken care of, and that was that the contract addresses the fact that he is to carry insurance and also were to be notified should that insurance lapse. And that was the genesis of my concern.
Right.
And the additionally insured was just another thing. I would rather get this taken care of and enforced, and if we wish to continue pursuing the additionally insured clause, we certainly can have an addendum to this contract at a later date. I think not having someone overseeing the water that is state certified is a bigger risk right now to us than that particular clause. That's just my feeling on it.
Okay, Kevin?
Agreed.
Councilmember Hayden?
I would agree, considering it's a $5,000 contract. It could go up considerably, and he does have $1 million worth of liability. And it doesn't, or $2 million, I guess. Here, what's it?
3 million, I believe, is what it.
What's it, well. But it doesn't sound like it's a real, there's a lot of danger involved in this, where there's not equipment, I would agree with Kevin.
Does,
Councilmember Pruitt?
yeah, I was just wondering, Andy, do you have the contract in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so basically what Mr. Griffin did was, under 11.1, he basically just crossed out the very last sentence.
Yes. And if you concur with that, then the mayor or whoever you authorize to sign contracts tonight ought to initial that line out as well. And then the contract would exist.
Okay.
Councilmember Crowell, you're good with that? Okay, I'm good with that as well. So
That takes us to our next thing.
with that, we will go on to the next item, which, if you'll stay on board a little longer, Andy, the next thing is the authorizing the mayor's spending limits and signature on contracts until the interim city administrator position is filled. Okay. So, Kathy?
Well, we have, just as an example, we have a letter that needs to go to the auditor. That letter has always had the city administrator's signature on it, so we would need that. And speaking of bills, we have several bills that we've always, you know, we have the city administrator sign. They're normal, they could be normal monthly bills that are a contract amount that is just normal process, they're paid, but we always have someone sign off on those, so we would rather have someone sign off on those. And then there could be little contracts that come in that is gonna require somebody's signature, and maybe it, you know, some things can't wait for a meeting, or we need a go-to person.
Like the Sheldon has repairs that need to be done on the holding tank, you know about that one.
Right.
And, I mean, that was what, $1,200?
$13.
And
Yes, Tom?
So, we gave administrator a limit of $2,500, correct, to be able to sign off on whatever you put out. So is that kind of what we're asking here for, is a $2,500 limit then too?
What we're also saying is, okay, for instance,
sure.
like Councilmember Pruitt brought up, we have the sheriff's bill. That's a contract that's already been approved. It's a monthly bill that we pay. It's always the same. So we would like to process those as we always have. Now, you know, if there was anything different in those, we would, of course, bring it to your attention, but the attorney's bill, you know, it's always over $2,500. Mary Ann, can you think of anything else? Hood River County?
The sheriff's office, the true bill, the dues for Tracy is over, that $5,000 or $8,000 one, maybe she didn't put that in there.
I don't think it's in here.
Okay.
Yes, Tom?
And so I guess another question on that, then if the mayor's working and he's knocking it out 9 to 5 throughout the week, do we just want the mayor, or do we want the mayor and the president? It sounds like the president has a little more time to be able to,
That's
Well,
your guys'
I don't know.
decision. We just.
I'm
it
able
sounds
to
like you
make
need something fairly quick, I don't know.
I'm able to make it down every day.
Oh, okay.
So
And I know the
Sounds good.
contract thing that we were talking about was Sheldon, the guy, What was
His name?
I know that he told you guys about it.
It was on the telemetry.
Yeah, the
of
telemetry
water
at the,
At the reservoir.
I know he talked to the mayor about it for
Yeah.
sure.
I don't remember
So
his
that would
name
be one
either.
of the things that would
Yeah.
be, it's under $2,000, but we're gonna need somebody to say, yes, go do that, get it done.
Yes, Kevin?
So we're talking about two different things though. The big bills, like the sheriff's contract, which are over $6,000, $7,000, those would have, somehow those were exempted from the spending authority.
Because it's, you guys, budget-wise approve it, it's a contract, it's a set amount every month that you've already approved.
Okay,
It's something we have to pay.
I understand. So I guess I was trying to figure out how that came into the conversation about spending authority, because those are already approved items.
Okay, well, we have just always had the city administrator initial those.
Okay.
I mean, if,
Would that be on items that are budgeted, reoccurring, contracted,
right,
just for, to have, say Kathy have the authority to initial them, or Marion have the authority to initial them? We're still gonna have to approve them as part of the bills
right.
later on. Personally, that seems
Redundant.
redundant to have the mayor come down and initial something.
It's a monthly
It's always been
recurring
approved.
bill.
It's been approved.
Okay.
And so I,
Just, that was our normal process, so we
no,
just
yeah, I
wanted,
appreciate that. I was just looking for the simplest solution for efficiency for you guys.
and if we question something, of course, we bring it to your attention.
Yes, Don?
And how much of an authority would we need that would take care of the ongoing things until we have an intern person that the mayor could sign? What kind of a limit would we need, do you think? The same as
I
with the
think
administrator?
it can be the same, because if there's anything other than that, it's gonna come before council.
What would we have to do to get the authority
We
right
have to
now
make a
for the
motion.
mayor to do this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would move to give the mayor the authority to spend up to $2,500 without the prior consent of council.
Does that sound okay to George, Andy?
Does that sound okay, Andy?
Yes.
Second?
Motion's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Benson moved that the mayor have authority to sign $2,500 maximum amount. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now,
Now, does that go along with the contracts? I mean, what about these?
So the other things we're gonna let Kathy sign off on, is that correct? The ongoing things you're doing.
Well, hang on, let's finish this one, then we can make
Oh, we just did.
another. Okay. So anyway, that motion passes. So then the next, entertain a motion that we change the standard procedure for Kathy, that it's no longer required on monthly recurring, yeah,
Budget approved.
budget approved. But anyway, that's,
I wanted to get some feedback from Kathy. Is that gonna cause any problems with your operation? I mean,
It would help things continue, if we could just continue,
okay,
it
so,
helps things.
so,
Like I said, if we have any question at all, of course, we're gonna contact the mayor or councilman.
so I don't know if we have to take action on that or not. I think it's already
Just give it
an
this
approved
one.
practice. Could we have just a consensus that Kathy is authorized to continue
Yeah.
that practice?
And it'll be in the minutes, the discussion, so.
okay.
I agree.
Take
Is that appropriate,
consensus.
Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I can-
More for it?
Hang on.
Go for it.
No?
Make sure that's entered in the minutes.
So am I.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, with that being concluded, we will go to the next,
So
pardon?
what about the contracts? What about signing contracts? We gave authority to, sign checks. What about new contracts, like the person who has to come, I mean, I don't know, is that a contract, the person who has to come fix the telemetry?
well, if it's under $2,500, I have that
Oh, then,
authority.
okay, sorry.
A new contract would come before council anyway for consideration. We'd have to approve that.
Okay, sorry.
We good?
Did you have a motion, by the way, on the Griffin contract? Did you adopt a motion authorizing the mayor to sign that?
No, we did not.
Probably ought to do that.
See, I make a motion that the mayor be authorized to sign the Dave Griffin contract.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the mayor have authority to sign the Dave Griffin contract. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, I think from here on, we don't, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, Andy, we appreciate your time, but that's all we have for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is discussion and options on the hiring a new city administrator and and going through the candidates. So I will open it up to discussion. Councilmember Benson?
I'm sorry, I just noticed this, that these are, to me, backwards on the
Yes,
agenda.
I agree.
I think,
We need to vote on the letter.
because one leads to the other.
Yes.
Oh, Okay, well, I can, we will rearrange that and talk about the city plan, or the letter to,
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry again.
pardon me?
Are we gonna consider, are we gonna consider or discuss an interim city administrator, or are we simply going to
Well, that's part of the same
discuss,
three.
this is interim city planning consultant, is what the number 5 says. Or can we, or would that be part of the discussion on city administrator candidates? I'm sorry.
On number
to
4?
To confuse this whole thing, but
Well, we can go about it either way, I guess. We could jump down to 7 and 6, and go to 7 and go with approval of a letter to the city administrator.
Well, I think what he's,
Is
I
that what
think
you're
what
saying?
Kevin's talking about is, number 4, we're talking about options for city administrator candidates. There's nothing in here where we're talking about an interim city administrator.
Oh, I see.
Oh, it's supposed
It
to be
should have
in-
said interim city administrator.
instead of city
Candidate.
planning.
Huh?
Number 4 says city administrator candidates, and
It should have said
number
interim.
5 says, interim city
City
planning consultant.
Which we
Yeah.
have to look at.
Yeah,
too.
okay, so interim, the word interim should be,
Should be,
is that what you're,
yes, it should be added to number 4.
That was my
Options
concern,
for
is that we were
interim city
jumping ahead to
administrator.
finding a permanent person,
no.
No,
and before we address our current.
the word interim was left out, so. All right. So I think we're clear now. So discussions on options for hiring an interim city administrator is where we're at. So there's been, Kathy had contacted the League of Oregon Cities and contacted they had a list of different people who were willing to come to Cascade Locks to be interim city administrator here.
Actually, she sent out a list, and I narrowed it down based on the fact of whether or not they had city manager or administrator experience, because I didn't feel at this time it would be, I didn't feel at this time we needed another experimental person to come learn on a curve here. I really wanted somebody with just flat-out administrator experience, so that's where the list was generated from.
There's 2, or is there more than, I've got 2.
There's
here.
4.
Mm.
Yeah, our paperwork is a
I
mess.
have 5.
Are you on 5, Lisa?
I have 5.
But I thought we were we're still investigating other possible
Yes,
All
that
possible,
too. That too.
possibilities for that. So,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, Mr. Bishop.
So I appreciate having the resumes, but I think considering the resumes at this point is kind of premature. I think we need to figure out how the decision process is going to work, and also I think we need to investigate the amount of money it's going to cost to hire one of these people. I'm totally in the dark as to what this type of position
Right.
generally pay, how soon they would be available and such, and come up with some sort of ranking system too, or we're a subcommittee that's gonna interview the people, or how the whole process is gonna work in advance, so that we do it in a fair way, that where everyone gets equal opportunity and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And Kathy probably has an idea of how, do you have?
I can look back at what we did before, and, I believe the subcommittee was a couple of counselors, and I believe court general manager, I'll have to look back and see who all was a part of a subcommittee to interview.
For an interim?
Well, for city administrator, but
Okay, for what is, has anything we've done before for just an interim city administrator? Was it that big of a process?
well, last time we had an interim, the council appointed an interim. There was no process.
Process.
Mr. Morgan wasn't.
Yeah.
How, excuse me,
Go ahead.
how long do we think we would have a person roughly? 2, 3 months, 4 months?
Have no idea.
It could be 3 to 6 months, I would think.
It's quite possible. From what I've seen in resumes and stuff, there's a lot of times that interims can be, they can be 6 months, 8 months. I've seen a year on the different resumes, if that's how long they've been at other cities. So it tends to think that it's not a real fast process.
I would think we should have a group together and start at least by going through these and thinning them out. Maybe it's going to take some telephone calls and then report back to the council. I don't think we're going to do anything here. I think there's a lot of work to be done. It has to be done quick, but I think it's going to take some time to go through these.
Okay. Councilmember Benson?
Well, possibly just as a starting point, we could agree to give a person or a group of people the authority to contact these people, or at least to develop a questionnaire that we're going to use to contact these people and start the process. Because I do think it's something we need to get moving on quickly, because this is the first step to finding the permanent person. And, you know, maybe a more abbreviated process than would be undertaken finding the long-term replacement. I think that's something that we would kind of rely on this person to help us with the process of finding the permanent person. And, you know, would probably do a more professional job than we can do just off the top of our heads here. But I think the first step is to authorize someone to review these, maybe do some research as far as more candidates, and then set up something where we can either set an appointment to interview these people either as a council or as a subcommittee of the council to get the process moving forward. I don't think we want to interview every single one of these people, or.
Yes, Kathy?
I just want to let the council know that Dave Merriweather came in today, and, you know, he said he would help in any way, so, you know, there are people that will help.
Yes, Kevin.
And I would be interested in working with maybe Mr. Merriweather or Chuck Daughtry or whatever group we can establish. The campground's closed for the next month or so, so I have some free time to do that. And if the other council people would feel comfortable with me taking the lead on that, I certainly wouldn't make any decisions without consulting you guys, but.
Well, that's my
Yes.
thought. I'd like to see, and maybe even Don, who's been involved in,
I'll be available through the 24th. I'll be gone for about a week, but through the 24th, I can help you. Anything I can do to help.
Forgive me because I'm not absolutely positive what I can say here, but I think I have the ability to recommend a committee, and I would recommend that we have a committee, and we asked Chuck Daughtry, get his permission, see if he's willing to do it, and see if Dave Merriweather is ready to do it, to help us with this committee, and then also Kevin Benson and Don Haight. And then we can also, in all fairness, I would also like to extend that to ask whether or not there'd be any other council members that might want to be involved. But I would say 5 people would be a maximum amount. Yes, Kevin?
I wonder if there's any of the, any citizens that would be interested too. I haven't talked to anybody, nobody's expressed interest, but it seems like that might be an appropriate thing.
That would be quite appropriate. I feel that, let's say, and we'll have Kathy put something on Channel 23. We'll post it for 1 week, and then at that time, yeah, Kevin?
Do we want to, just for discussion, I'm not saying it's the appropriate way to go, but do we want to go past 3 people? Just simply trying to get a group together. If you make it 5, you still have to have a quorum for this to meet. Is it going to be something we're going to have to take minutes of? Is it something we can do less than officially? Is it something we can do less?
You don't want 4 council members.
Yeah, you don't want 4 council
Because
members.
it's kind of an exploratory committee or group or whatever, and if we make it an official committee, are we going to run afoul of public meeting laws?
No, a subcommittee for this particular process is not the same
Okay,
as city meetings.
okay. I just wasn't sure. Mr. Hayes has a question.
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
I would suggest that Kevin heads up a committee, and we ask Chuck if he could participate. I would help, and I would like to get at least one citizen that would volunteer. I think it'd be helpful.
I'm fine with that. Take a consensus?
It's good with me.
Everybody's good with that? All right. So that's what we'll do.
Okay, I have a question. Now, are we just going to be exploring city administrators, or are we, because Kevin had mentioned another alternative, I'm not sure if that was going to be
We're
mentioned.
exploring an interim city
Okay.
administrator.
Okay, okay.
And
Oh, it goes through now.
Okay. So, the discussion, any further discussion on that?
just one more.
Apparently not.
Yes, Kevin?
Apparently so.
As far as the citizen, how are we going to put out something on Channel 23 to ask for applications for that? Is the mayor going to appoint someone, or whatever, how are we gonna do that?
Okay. I'm not familiar with who Dave Merriweather is. Is he a citizen?
He's in the county.
He's a Hood River? Oh.
Commissioner?
I don't think he's going to be,
Yeah.
I think we can call him and ask for advice, but I don't think he's going to be involved in getting together and discussing it personally. I think he'd be a good go-to person, but I think it's going to be up to us.
And he
Okay.
might be a good person to ask questions, what, I don't know, what things we should
But that's something
ask
that
or
the
something-
committee could
something like that.
use him as a sounding board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So as far as, if someone from the community wants to be on this committee, I would say that Kathy could put out a public notice, put it at the post office, put it on Channel 23, and see if we can get somebody interested in a week's time. And if no one's interested in a week's time, we need to pursue this and keep going. So, there's no one in the audience that would like to be on this committee, is there?
I'd be happy to. I've been through this. As a city councilman, when we had Mr. Bridges come on board, we brought Mr. Bridges on board in the same kind of situation, and then he helped us pick up the person behind him. So I do have some background in your process.
Okay, Larry, well, we'll put your name down, and we'll go ahead and, we're still going to put it out to see if anybody else is interested, but
Yes, yes.
thank you.
I think that's only fair.
So then, are we gonna have, we're gonna have an even number committee, or, yeah, so we'll need,
3.
oh, so we're not gonna have Chuck Daughtry as part of it?
Well, my understanding was that
You
I
would?
was gonna be on it, Chuck was gonna be on it, Don's gonna be leaving for a bit, and he said he would be willing to help,
Oh, I see,
To
okay.
not as an official member.
I see.
I think that's what I
I see,
understood.
all right.
And, is it possible for, or would the council agree for me to meet with Mr. Daughtry prior to the deciding on the citizen to set up,
Certainly.
to work on the groundwork or whatever of the process? Because I don't think we can really delay it for a long
No, I
time.
agree.
And certainly anyone who is involved in it would be brought up to speed and allowed, given the input, allowed to give input into the process, but I do think it's something we need to move forward on.
Well, you're gonna have a week before.
Okay, but I can
You're more than, yes.
contact Chuck and.
Contract Chuck and get going, because we really want to get going on this. We want to fill the void and get things trying to flow back into a normal situation.
I guess I should say that I haven't talked to Chuck. Hopefully he'll be available.
That's true. That's true.
But, we'll go from that point. If he's not, I'll contact the council and we can, maybe work on going another route.
Okay. All right, so then with that, is there any more discussion on the interim city administrator? Okay, we will go to the next item. And it's the same as talking about the interim city planner. And I was given a name, and I instantly went blank. Anyway, yes, Don?
I've heard conversation quite some time ago that it might be possible to share a city planner with Hood River. I don't know if there's any value, or if it's possible, or if it's a good idea, a bad idea, but I have heard that. I don't know if it would work, or...
Yeah, I've heard that the Hood River County
Yeah,
planner doesn't.
their money's getting
because of the
tight,
way-
and they,
Right, they're tight, and because of the way the economy is, they don't have all the projects that
Yeah.
they were having.
Okay. Take a consensus here then, is it all right for, Kevin had a question?
Well, I think that may create a different situation because I believe budget-wise, our planner was paid through system development charges and grants and so forth. Did we budget enough in that particular fund to pay for like a part of a full-time person? Where it's not, the cost of the planner isn't work generated where we're getting paid back for it, right?
No, it is. Usually the city planner works, what he works on is we charge the customer for. There are items that he works on for city that we have budgeted, but Kathy's more familiar with how the city planner is.
Well, if they're working on a land use case, that's citizens or people come in and they're gonna pay for that land use case. And, we've always been charged an hourly rate, their fee pays for that. They sign a slip of paper, says if, you don't have your stuff together and you use more time, you pay for it. We have other things that we have used, the planner for that you guys budget money for out of the general fund, and off the top of my head, I can't, I guess casino issues, IMP, those sort of things, the city pays for.
what would you guess is repaid through citizens and what the city pays? What percentage would you guess? 50/50 or?
Well, it depends on the land use cases coming in, so, and it depends on what projects the city's working on.
Right now, there's not too much development.
There'd be the CCHC stuff.
Well, that's being handled by Larry Epstein right now, isn't it? That one's being handled by Larry Epstein, yeah. Kevin?
Well, here's what I was trying to get at, and that is that if we shared, say, shared a planner with Hood River, that we need to be clear about what we mean by share. If we say we're gonna share them, they're gonna say, well, then you can have, we have this half-time person that you're gonna pay their salary,
Monthly.
half of their salary every month for the next 12 months.
Right.
Which isn't how we've operated in the past. The majority of our planning work has been customer created, where they have to pay for that planner's time. The city isn't on the hook for that. And I think we need to be careful that we don't go off in a direction here that we don't have the budget to cover.
You know, I wasn't thinking of, it would have to be an hourly type
Okay.
thing. I wasn't thinking of, okay, you pay half of 55 or 60, 70,000. It wouldn't, I know that wouldn't work for sure. Yeah.
So our planner's not on any kind of retainer then? We don't pay him a monthly thing to stay here? He only gets his money when he's doing a project, either for a private enterprise or doing a project we're asking him to do?
Correct.
Okay. So that's how we would have, if we did it with the county, then that's how we would have to approach the county, is that can we use your person, but the only time we're paying is when we have a when we have an issue for you to take care of.
Yeah, and they would probably want to charge us a premium based on them, you know, maintaining that position year-round and us just using it on a as-needed basis. But I think we might be, it might be good to compare that to what we would pay another firm. There's a firm in the Dalles that they were our planners before Mr. Morgan, and they've been here this year, or at the end of last year. I can't remember the name of them though.
I know that I've seen their name on some old paperwork, so I'm sure I can find them.
So, if I
Okay,
don't know what
so
the
what-
hourly rate is.
Right.
Generally, I do know what Mr. Morgan was charging us, but whether that's a normal rate or whether it's low or high or.
And
Go ahead, Kathy.
we can send out an RFP, and we have the RFP that we had when we sent out for Mr. Morgan's position. We have also contacted other cities to see if they have, if they've used an RFP lately. We haven't had any responses at all. So we do have the one. We can also go through the attorney, get some help, fixing that up or whatever, and just send it out and see what comes in.
Well, that's what I'd like to see to do, Kathy, if the council agrees, is I would like to see you send out a request to the city of Hood River and ask them whether or not they would entertain the possibility if their planner could be hired on an hourly basis to help us and what their hourly base rate would be. And then we could also contact someone like Larry Epstein to find out if he's willing to do that on an hourly basis and what his charge would be.
$85 an hour.
Well, we don't know what, okay. And send out, like you said, send it out to a few people and see what we get back. That way we have some information and then we know what we're dealing with. Yes, Kevin?
Could we craft an RFP that included cities in our request for proposal? Where, we're requesting a proposal from public bodies and private contractors to enter into an agreement with the city of Cascade Locks for an hourly planner.
Right.
And one-shot deal and send it to all of them and see what we get back and, what their proposed rate would be.
I mean, I think it's good to have a discussion with the county, because that would not be something that is done normally. I know it was discussed a while back, and for whatever reason, the county didn't want to do it then, but, they may be more inclined to do it now. So it could probably be a little bit of discussion with them, because it would probably be a little different type of arrangement, but definitely they look at the RFP also. And
It's good for them to look at it.
so I can have that put together, and I actually had it on for the next agenda, so you can look at the RFP, and
Okay.
if I can get it through the attorney by then.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Kevin?
I think this is for Kathy probably. Are there specific educational requirements or certification requirements for someone to act as a city planner?
I'm sure they have to have their license.
That's a licensed
It's
position?
a licensed.
Okay. And that's,
I believe
is
all
that like
that's
an
in there.
attorney's license, or is it specific to each state or county, or?
I believe it's specific to each state.
To a certain degree. Okay, so we have a consensus that Kathy's gonna work on that? Everything? Okay. So, with that being said, that will be, we will go on to the next. Yes,
Just
Tom?
one question. How are we fixed for, how soon do we have to have a meeting? Do we know?
For what?
For,
What is our next
for city planner?
most urgent city planners meeting that we're scheduled, that we have, or what's next on the agenda that's urgent?
They were canceled for February, weren't they?
Well, January 24th, at your next meeting, we had 2 hearings scheduled. One of those will not happen. The other one was the CCHC land swap.
But that's a Larry Epstein thing, right? That's being
That's
handled, being handled by Larry Epstein, so that's not an issue.
And the other thing was dropped.
Right, and the other thing was dropped, and then it was my understanding the planning commission didn't have a meeting for next month.
There's nothing in the works that would
So-
require them to have a meeting.
So we have some time,
Couple months, it sounds like.
Good.
at least 6
Okay.
weeks.
Not unless a land use case comes in,
Yeah.
application.
And supposing something like that did happen, what options would we have? Just a contract for that specific thing with someone, or?
I don't know, I suppose when we're doing this and we're maybe talking to Larry Epstein or the county, you know, maybe there's something in between till we get somebody set that somebody can help us out.
We'll do it.
Okay. Any other questions? None? Okay, we'll go on to the approval of the letter that we will send to the city planner, consultant John Morgan. Everyone has a copy of the letter?
Yes.
Read it out loud.
Okay. Dear Mr. Morgan, the purpose of this letter is to advise you that the city hereby accepts your 30-day written notice dated on December 31st, 2010, to terminate the professional service agreement for consulting services for city planning agreement. Pursuant to Article 15 of the agreement, we have determined that the 30 days will end on Sunday, January 30th, 2011. Withstanding your notice, the city wishes to accelerate your termination date to make it effective today. Again, pursuant of Article 15 of the agreement, this requires the mutual agreement of the parties. Therefore, if you agree to an immediate mutual termination of the agreement, please sign and return this copy of the letter as noted below. In the alternative, you should not agree, should you not agree to the immediate termination of the agreement, you are hereby notified that you are to suspend performing any work for the city under this agreement. Especially, you are relieved from performing service as the city planning director and providing land use planning services to the city. Therefore, you are hereby notified to immediately cease and desist from having or making any comments regarding city business or appearing before any public board or committee wherein you express any opinion about the city's positions on any matter without the expressed written permission of the mayor or the council president. The city will honor any invoices for your work performed for the city prior to the date of this letter in accordance with the terms of the agreement. However, invoices for any work or services performed more than 3 days after the date of this letter shall not be honored. Sincerely, George Fisher, Mayor, Cascade Locks.
Just a second.
Yeah, the second page is just
Oh, is there a second?
where he signs it. And
There's some verbiage on it.
The Morgan CPS Group, Inc. hereby mutually agrees to immediately terminate the professional service agreement and consulting services for the city planning pursuant to Article 15 of this agreement.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would move to authorize the mayor to sign and send the previously read letter to John Morgan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Benson that the mayor signed the letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay,
Will that be sent certified enough?
Yes.
yeah. Okay. We will go on to the approval of the letter to the city administrator.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, would you please? I'm having a hard time with my eyes.
Dear Mr. Seeger, on or about Tuesday, January 4th, 2011, you were placed on paid administrative leave by an action taken by the City Council. On further information and belief, you were given instructions that while on paid administrative leave, you were to conduct no business on behalf of the city, and you were to have no contact with or otherwise make any representations to businesses or other public entities doing business with the city without the prior express permission of the mayor or the council president. On information and belief, the city has learned that you appeared before the Port of Cascade Locks on Thursday, January 6, 2011, and made statements purporting to represent the city's position on matters then pending before the Port Board. It is the city's contention that your conduct was in violation of the express instructions you received when placed on administrative leave. On information and belief, you did not consult with or request permission to participate in the Port meeting with the mayor or the council president before doing so. While the city understands that 2 city councilors and the mayor were present at the meeting, this does not excuse you from following the direct and specific instructions you received from the city council on Tuesday, January 4, 2011. Therefore, you are hereby notified to immediately cease and desist from having or making any comments regarding city business or appearing before any public boards or committees wherein you express any opinion about the city's position or positions on any matter during your paid administrative leave without the express written permission of the mayor or the council president. Your failure to adhere to this instruction during the term of your paid administrative leave may result in disciplinary action being taken to terminate your employment for cause. Sincerely, George Fisher.
Councilmember Benson?
I would move to authorize the mayor to sign this letter.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Benson to approve this letter and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, next on our agenda is discussion on Public Works supervisor position. Any council member have a comment? Councilmember Benson?
I don't think this particular item is really ripe for discussion. I believe that having the interim city administrator at least in position would be the appropriate way to address this particular position. I know I'm not anywhere near versed enough on appropriate requirements or any of those type things for this position to really consider hiring somebody.
Don?
I agree, but just a question, maybe Kathy knows, is it possible, say we tried to hire someone without this, I believe it's a 6-month certificate or something, could we hire someone that doesn't have it and agree for the city to pay for this training? Can it even be considered, I wonder?
Councilmember Benson?
I believe it's a 2-year process for someone that doesn't have it.
Takes 2 years.
2 years of experience in order to even be qualified to take the test. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I've been told. We have taken care of the one problem tonight, I think, with hiring Mr. Griffin. We have someone who's acting public works superintendent right now. So, and I'm not aware of any pressing issues that aren't being addressed in that department the way it's operating right now. And if I was to be the new city administrator, if I had my druthers, I would like to be the person to recruit and hire the people that work for me. I think it makes it a lot simpler transition and a lot easier to create a team, cohesive team that works together if you're involved in who works for you.
Any other comments from council? Tom?
On that is, I don't have it with me either, but there's 2 different levels, and the level 1, you can get within a year or 2 in there. And none of our guys, I'm talking to the guys, one of them have that level. And the supervisor has to be at a level 2, and you can't get to level 2 until you're out there, I think like 3 or 4 years, something like that to get the. But I think our thing does say that if you're a level 1, we give you, we can hire you and give you, but the fact is, if you don't have the level 2, I don't know, you may not be in compliance with it, because that's where we have the issue here with the county. You may not be in compliance if we hired somebody at the level 1 and waited for them, we may not be in compliance for the year of waiting for them to get to 2. I don't know, but reading the thing, I know that there are 2 levels. And
Kathy, do you know, does the city not have a contract with CH2M Hill to do, and do they not have their level 2 wastewater collection?
I honestly can't answer that. We do contract with CH2M Hill to maintain the plant,
Okay.
but as far as above that or what they have, I do not know that.
I think
Okay,
it's
is
the
that-
potable water that's the issue. I'm talking to Bernard, it's the drinkable water that.
Well, that's what we just hired
Right,
David Griffin for.
exactly. That's
So
what
now
I'm talking
that's where the problem lies, it's not wastewater collection.
No,
So,
I think he has all that though too.
with that being said then, if David Griffin's now gonna be doing our collection, drinking water, and the wastewater collection is taken care of with CH2M Hill, I think we should table this until we have a new city administrator. Kevin?
Hopefully remember it when we discuss it in the future, but I think we should have a plan in place to try and certify several people in these things that are necessary for the city to operate. For one thing, I think it would be advantageous for the city administrator maybe to have at least the certification, or at least pursue the certification in this type of a thing. Maybe it's not possible, I don't know. But it would be nice to have multiple people have the ability to do this. My understanding is it's not a really large responsibility, and I think the contract with Mr. Griffin kind of speaks to that. There's not a lot of actual work involved in it. It's more of a supervisory thing, overseeing, making sure things are done that need to get done as far as
Correct.
reports and tests and so on and so forth.
I think that's a valid consideration because it would lead for future advancement for people within the city to advance further up. And I think that would be quite beneficial to the city. And we might, in the future, when the the interim city administrator, I think we should talk to him and actually make that part of the requirement within the city. I agree.
Or even maybe part of the contract. A lot of cities will reward people getting certifications in certain things, so maybe
Right.
we could offer that as an inducement to
Correct.
increase their value to the city.
Okay?
This Dave Griffin contract, it's not a set time, it's just a limit, a monetary limit amount. Is that what everybody else got?
When you run out of the 5,000.
When we run out of the $5,000, then the contract.
I believe
It seems kind of like it was
And
given
I-
out as timed in order to have it expire at the end of this budget cycle.
Yeah, I think it, it was meant to be an in-between till we got a public works superintendent.
Okay. Any other further comment from any council? Yes, Tom?
Well, my other comment on that is some of the issues we've had here in the last year, and I'm all for the temporary or the city administrator working towards hiring the person, but I believe I still believe from our Constitution or our charter, that it is up to us to make the hire. What I believe we get from the administrator is just in here, there's a list of people, and the administrator interviews, talks, finds out what they've got, and presents who they believe is the best candidate, but presents that candidate to us and tells us if we have an issue with that candidate or want to look at some of the other candidates. I believe the council should do that. I don't think it's a clear out hire for the city administrator.
I agree.
I think I agree with that as well, Tom. I think it's just that I thought it would be nice for him
Well,
to
I
be
agree with that. No, I think they should be.
Yeah.
But I think we should be involved in
I
that.
misspoke by saying.
In the final hiring.
Yeah, and I agree. Well, and at least until, we consider changes to ordinance 150, which I think clearly states that it's up to the council to consider the recommendation of the city administrator, but the final hire is our authority or responsibility.
Okay. Any further discussion? With that, we'll put that to an end.
I would like to say before you go to adjournment that I want the people to know that the city staff has been working really hard during this interim period. There's been a lot of chaos and a lot of just general chaos, and Kathy especially has worked really, really hard this past week or two, and she came up with a date to be here tonight, which I tried to talk her out of, but
Well, not a hot date.
A date's a date.
Date's a
a
date.
date's a date, man. But I just wanted to tell her thank you.
All right.
I concur. So before we adjourn that, I want to mention that, I concur with that too, but I also was talking to Kathy before the meeting tonight. They've got all their new desks and
It's nice.
desk chairs and all that on it, and she said it's made it a lot nicer for the staff to have the new furniture, so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you, all the stress.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would just like to say, we've heard some bad stuff in the community that people have said, but I know that the staff, and I will speak for the staff, we do thank the council and everyone for letting this happen. It's the first time in City Hall that anything this nice has been here. And, it does make a difference when you come into work and, things look nice, carpet's clean, and you have decent furniture, and it makes a big difference, and I know, and it probably doesn't make sense to people, but sitting at a desk and being able to reach everything, being at the right height, and everything is just right there. It's very nice. Thank you.
Good.
Well, I know I can speak from personal experience that there's nothing better than having the right tool for the job. It makes life a lot easier. I wanted to bring my carpenter hammer and replace it with this one, but I'll leave this one. I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for being here. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. We're adjourned. Oh, did I miss one?